Britain included, voting to continue recognition of a defunct regime, which they themselves acknowledge as the most thorough mass murderers since Hitler. The reason is this: the West does not wish to upset its newest ally and trading partner, China. For China is also Pol Pot's principal backer. One British organisation, Oxfam, has attached no political strings to its aid, and its success in feeding some of the starving is an indictment of all those governments still talking about the global power balance, and all those relief agencies which refuse to move without their caravan of conditions. On October the 15th, Oxfam's Director General, Brian Walker, said in London, "We have had only complete and honourable cooperation from the Cambodian government and the Vietnamese. When I left Cambodia," said Walker, "the total input of Western aid over 9 months amounted to 200 tons of food. I don't see how anyone can be proud of that situation."
These people has anthrax in French, maladie du charbon.
Yeah. Now, what is anthrax and what does it do?
It's an infectious disease which is due to a bacillus of charbon.
And how do you treat it?
By antibiotics,
Prevent it?
such as penicillin.
Penicillin?
Penicillin, yes.
Penicillin will
Yes.
cure it. Is there any penicillin in this hospital?
No, there are some, but not enough.
If people don't get any penicillin at all, how long does it take them to die?
They die
Presuming they
in
must die.
2 weeks or 1 month.
That really says a lot about the problems of this country. A simple, preventable disease that needs only penicillin.
This is a disease that you usually never see in Europe. It is a disease which touches
Since
only the animals.
1920.
Yes, it's an animal disease. This child, what is she suffering from?
She's suffering from anthrax also.
From anthrax
Anthrax
also.
of the face, yes, and from malnutrition of the first degree.
Why is her face swollen?
Why?
Why?
Yes, because there is
Is this
an
ulcer?
ulcer.
Consequence
Yes,
of the anthrax, yes.
So it's difficult for her to eat anyway.
Yes, yes.
Probably,
yes.
yes.
Very difficult, yes.
What will happen to her?
In the lack of treatment, she died in the next week.
The few drugs that have reached the hospital at Kompong Spur simply prolong the agony. Every morning the Vietnamese doctor must decide who will live a little longer and who will die. The population is traumatized. There is 1 miscarriage for every 3 normal pregnancies, and at least 50% of the women have lost their menstrual cycle completely. These shy people never held out a begging bowl, but such is their agony that this young woman begged us for medicines before she died. These children are the end of a process begun by impeccable politicians who took their decisions at great distance from the results of their savagery. Their style may have differed from Pol Pot's, but the effect was the same. The bombs are like falling rain, wrote a child in 1973, a year in which the tonnage of bombs dropped on Cambodia exceeded by half the entire tonnage dropped on Japan in World War II. The price of a Cambodian life was, incidentally, $100 compensation. William Shawcross, the British author, interviewed Prince Sihanouk last year. 2 men, said Sihanouk, are responsible for the tragedy in Cambodia today, Mr. Nixon and Dr. Kissinger. By expanding the war into my country, they killed a lot of Americans and many other people. And they created the Khmer Rouge. The people in the town of Tonle Sap, on the banks of the Mekong River, have regressed almost to the Stone Age. Before the madman theory of war, and before Pol Pot, this was a place of prosperous farmers, skilled workers, engineers and teachers. All the brick and stone buildings have been destroyed, and people now live under straw and in plywood shanties. There are few adult males left to work the fields, and the rice ration is ½ pound per person per month. A young woman describes how 16 members of her family were executed in one day. They were declared to be unproductive, she said. They were killed with pieces of wood and their throats were slit, one by one. My baby was left in the heat to die. My sister-in-law was killed because someone said she was too beautiful. The Vietnamese are condemned for driving out the Khmer Rouge killers. Were the Tanzanians condemned for throwing out the hideous Idi Amin? Of course not. It should be explained why the Vietnamese came here to Cambodia. After 1975, Vietnam was under constant attack by the Khmer Rouge, who massacred Vietnamese border villages and were supported by 10,000 Chinese. An unholy trinity of Pol Pot, China, and America say that Vietnam is an agent of Russia. Anybody who knows the fiercely nationalistic Vietnamese, who have stood virtually alone against invaders for 30 years, knows this to be laughably untrue. But the Chinese threat and the present denial of aid is pushing both Vietnam and Cambodia deeper into the waiting arms of the Soviet Union. Both the Cambodians and the Vietnamese are fighting for their survival as never before. When the Khmer Rouge retreated before the Vietnamese, they blew up many traditional dikes and dams, and to add to the apocalypse, the rains have been unrelenting this year. From the air, the endless landscape of Southeast Asia, the patchwork of paddies and fields, is barely discernible. Nothing moves, as if the great humanity of Asia has stopped at the border. Phnom Penh is dreamlike. Nothing seems to echo from the days of peace. Then you awoke at the Hotel Royal, switched on your radio, and in all probability heard the squeaky drama queen voice of Prince Sihanouk berating you for writing an article about the financial excesses of the royal family. Sundays were a joy, especially the parade down Monivong Avenue, the parasols, the girls with jasmine astride Hondas, the saffron rose.